What is up, everybody? It's Joe from JLB Games coming at you with another cool video back in Planet Coaster in the one, the only Time City. We left off, we completed the layout of the Roman coaster, and now we are working more on the queue line of this coaster. So we actually get quite a bit done, I think. We actually get the base of the queue line right here for this structure that is actually going to be really, really neat when it's all said and done. We get some good stuff done with it today. So we get some of the walls up, and we don't get any roofing done or anything like that, but we do get a considerable amount done for the queue line, and I actually think I'm actually pretty proud of how it turned out. And again, I'm still learning the architecture, and it's actually turned out pretty cool. So this was a little bit of a challenge because, you know, you had the queue line that was, I had to create lots of different building, technically like little different building sections and stuff, because they were all at different angles, and that was the idea kind of it. You know, everything's going to be made out of like, a lot of stuff's going to be made out of like stone and marble and all these columns and everything. You know, it makes the most sense for this theming, and it works pretty well for this so far, and I'm liking how it's looking so far. And hopefully we'll instead of like regular railings, we're going to be using like little stone curb pieces that are going to be going up and pretty much dividing all the queue around throughout the sections and stuff. I'm thinking about making either taller or putting something else on top of it. This is still a little bit too low, but for right now, it's kind of the idea I wanted to go with. None of the fences I thought would actually fit it decently at all, but the theming is that you're actually getting ready to enter the Colosseum for your battle with your opponent, which is going to be in the Colosseum. And so this is kind of the, I guess, place where you get ready or whatever, or something like that. Or I mean, you could basically make it pretty much underneath the Colosseum or part of the Colosseum right before you go out into the Colosseum. I've said Colosseum so many times that I don't know anymore. So I decided to go with like windows over here. You could look out into the water with these, and I thought these all these arches together is always thought like looked like a kind of like Roman architecture. So we had to go, I went in there and decided to go in and do some extra details. Excuse me. You know, obviously you can't just have this big opening right next to the queue line. We have to have some walls around it so guests don't fall down 20 feet or however high they're up, how high this is in the queue line anyways. But I'm going to be adding a lot of foliage and stuff up against the water, and I want to make it look really beautiful and pretty, and just make it look like it's supposed to be anyways. So I've been actually lately getting quite behind on making videos, but I should be getting ahead now since I'm going back, back down to 1080p for my videos. It takes a lot less time to render. Instead of taking hours, it literally takes like 10 to 20 minutes to render a video now. It's so much faster because 4K is like double the size of 1080p, so it just takes like so many hours. But even though the quality's fantastic on those, it just takes so much time up at the time. Like I said, for the cinematic shots and cinematic videos and stuff, I'm for sure going to be using 4K to get the best out of the shots, the best from our shots as best as we can, and that's how it's going to go down. So you didn't see this the last time, but I actually created this these tracks here, and this is going to be our transfer table, which is going to be an interesting concept because this transfer track to get it over and to the storage is actually going to be a turntable for the ride. So this transfer table is actually going to be a turntable, kind of like what you've seen with possibly like Mock's turntable concept that they had from IAPA a couple years ago for their spinning coaster, where it has a turntable and it's kind of like a transfer, but it turns instead. And I took that concept and implemented it into like the storage building instead. So what it's gonna be is this piece is going to be able to rotate around to face the track that you see where I have it facing right now, and it's going to rotate that way, and then also have the ability to slide over to one bay or the other. So it was kind of a lot of hard thinking because again, I want this to be able to be real, but at the same time I wanted to make sure it made sense. Since I wanted to make it look real, it had to make sense as well. So I decided to use like this cylinder piece, which you'll see here in a little bit, that will be used to actually rotate the track facing into the bays. Now you see where the train is sitting right now. It would actually, typically, if you're transferring it, you would actually have it sitting further back. That way it would rotate a little bit easier. So it would actually rotate right here, and it could slide over as well. So it's kind of like a double transfer piece. And I wanted to make it unique because I don't think there's any transfer piece that actually uses a turntable. So you see the sphere, it's going to be connected to the track, and the track can detach and then freely rotate. And then this cylinder piece is going to be on a, which is what I'm at right here, is going to be on a transfer thing too. So that cylinder will be able to shift left or right to line it up with either one of the two bays, maintenance bays. So that's kind of the idea, or the engineering standpoint inside of it that I kind of figured out. So it's got a little circular, not sphere, I don't know if I was saying, it's a cylinder that rotates it, and then that cylinder can slide left to right to slide it into one or the other bays. Because I didn't have the space that I needed for the other places, I had to face it the other way. So I said, why not try and create a unique transfer table that would work for this? And I'm adding some details here and there. I'm going to start adding some more cables to like my transfers and stuff, just to give it a little extra detail to it. So I think it works really well. Anyways, that's how that kind of works, and I'm pretty proud of how it turned out, and I think in reality that it could exist in real life. So hopefully that's the case. And I'm gonna start adding these toolkit items as well. I'm trying to limit my use of toolkit items because of issues that the game is having uploading stuff to the Steam Workshop with the toolkit items, and I don't want to run into that issue. So it's usually when you have a certain amount of toolkit items in the game, you got to be careful. And we've had that issue with our community park where we're using a lot of toolkit items, and because of that, we're not able to upload it to the Steam Workshop. So we're having issues transferring the park to each other, which is kind of a bad thing. So I don't want that to happen with my parks, so until that issue kind of gets fixed within Planet Coaster, I'm trying to limit the amount of toolkit items I use. So I want to try and keep the dinosaurs for sure. As for everything else, I'm just trying to keep it to a minimum. When it comes to like gift shops and stuff, I think that's the main thing, is when I use gift shops, I use so many toolkit items in there that I get issues locked up with those. So it's just kind of something you gotta be aware of and be kind of cautious about when making a park with toolkit items, because it could potentially mess things up. I think ever since they had the toolkit item updates, it's been kind of a bad thing for the game at the same time. I mean, I love having the toolkit items, but it's been kind of a bad thing for the game because it's really hurting the game's performance, and I think the creators really need to figure out when they create these items, if it's going to hurt the game in a way, because you don't want to have anything too high res or anything too much where the game can't handle. And I think that's where the issue is coming with a lot of the toolkit items, is that it's too much for the game to handle, and they need to kind of tone it down maybe on some of those items that the creators are making. I know that everyone wants to create like the most highest resolution or the most best textured items, but you got to make it to where it fits within the game and works properly. So I think that's kind of the issue it might be having. That's just a guess. I don't know exactly for sure, obviously, but but in the meantime, I'm just going to kind of limit my use of them. I'm still going to use them, but I'm just going to limit how many I use. I don't want to use too many in the park. And hopefully, I just kind of use the essential items, kind of like the air ducts, a group one that I like to use a lot. Obviously, the dinosaurs and the Jurassic section are a huge thing that I think is the main ones. You got to have those in there. As for everything else, I'm just trying to kind of limit how much I use of it. So this is kind of the tunnel area where I don't think I'm going to have these completely enclosed, but they're going to be kind of neat because it goes down inside the terrain, and I wanted to create some cool kind of theming and scenes around that. So you're going to be having this near miss element with the launch after this turn, under this turn. And I had to make the clearance just a little bit less, so I decided to put like the marble, pretty much it's actually flooring, but I use it as roof sometimes. So I wanted to create this and then to have some like coaster nets of some sort kind of blocking the way so it wouldn't, no debris can fall on the track below, somewhere along those lines. It's kind of a neat little idea, I thought. And with the chain link fence, I use that a lot to create like some coaster nets as well, just to kind of get that little safety precaution and a little pinch of realism and extra detail to my builds. I think they work pretty well. I like them. So we're gonna have to touch up this tunnel area just quite a bit. Obviously, I just kind of wanted to get it started and in a little state that we could at least say, yeah, that's kind of the idea that we're going for in these tunnels. So I didn't want to have terrain around it. I wanted to try and build some pieces around it to make it make sense, and we're going to have to fill in those empty gaps as well, probably in the next episode or two or something like that. And you're going to see, of course, a lot of foliage and trees and me just kind of really trying to get the area kind of in a more completed state, and just kind of, you're going to see that throughout the entire ride. I'm going to smooth out all the terrain, change the terrain colors and everything like that, kind of to get to that spot we want. And again, like I mentioned in the last episode, I'm doing some custom supporting here to finish off the episode on this big overbank turn. And I'm not going to custom support the entire ride, just kind of those spots where I think it needs it. So like this, and then you see that final inversion. I don't really care for that support as well, so we're going to be custom supporting that as well. Some of those low to the ground moments, those supports work just fine, the end game supports. And I think some of the viewers have said it as well, but I do think the Vector, which is the Mach hyper slash multi-launch, which is what we're using here, does have the best in-game auto-generated supports in-game, I think. They do have kind of the best. I mean, it's not obviously going to be the greatest in the world, but I think it does generate the best supports within the game, for sure. So I'm still going to try and do my some custom supporting, of course, but these custom supports are a little bit harder because you don't get any connectors and that come with it. The only connectors they really added to the game were the B&M connectors, so you kind of had to get a little creative when it comes to this. So what I did is I used the triangular piece to try and connect it to the track with the arch shapes, and it actually works really well because that's how most mock coasters are. Instead of like, Intamin usually has like a cylinder going through the track, but this has like the triangular piece kind of connected to it, and I just used a flange to connect it with the beam itself, and it actually has very similar to look to what it actually looks like. So I thought it actually works pretty well, and I'm pretty happy of how it is. I use the thicker supports because this is actually, I think, the tallest point of the ride is this overbank, which is kind of interesting, but because this ride doesn't actually go very high. It's not a very tall ride, but it's still a pretty thrilling coaster. But that's about all I get done in this episode, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe for more amazing content like this. And I hope you guys are enjoying the Roman section and everything in the park as well. If you want to go ahead and join me, the Discord, it links in the description, where you can see some behind the scenes stuff of the parks and coaster discussions as well. If you want to watch these episodes live, be sure to follow me on Twitch. All the links are in the description if you want to check any of those out. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next episode or live stream. Thanks, and goodbye.